my understanding is that Caruso was an opera singer.
He certainly was.
Caruso passed away, and his dog was Nipper.
Oh, really?
And Nipper, which I know there is still one Nipper on the Arnoff building in downtown Albany.
Right.
The doggy on the RCA
Sure.
record label and CD label was Caruso's dog, and evidently he recognized his master's voice.
Really?
And that is the history of that, being on RCA. And if you see under him listening to, the old-time record player, and it says his master's voice.
Right.
And that is Caruso. Now, original opera was on RCA's red label, right?
Right.
Now, the Marcella Sembrich Opera Museum, which you represent, you were telling me that Marcella Sembrich made some of the first recordings. Was it for RCA?
Yes, it was. She, along with Caruso, were colleagues, friends, and RCA recording artists.
Well, could you tell us about Marcella Sembrich? And
Sure.
You're here to talk about the museum, and now we know a little bit about opera.
Yeah.
What is her history?
Well, she was Polish and was born in an unlikely location for a world opera singer in Lvov, a little town near Lvov, in 1858. Current day Ukraine, but at the time part of Austria-Hungary, part of the eastern portion of Poland of the day. From a very poor family, but her father was a musician, traveling musician, and by 4 she was playing the piano, by 6 the violin. At 12 she was already performing in public, to the point where she was taken to the Lvov Conservatory, and where she studied, then went on to Vienna and studied briefly, at which time Franz Liszt, the famous composer, heard her play piano, play violin, and finally she sang for him, and he said, this is one of the quotes that we're proud to relay to people when they come to the museum. You have 3 pairs of wings on which to fly to fame. But then he added, referring to the violin, the piano, and the voice, but then he added, but sing for the world, for you have the voice of an angel. And so with an endorsement like that from someone like Liszt, it's no wonder that she went on to study. She studied in Milan, she made her debut in Athens, sang at Dresden, went there for a time to London. Then at the age of 25, in 1883, she was invited to the newly opened Metropolitan Opera, where she sang...
In New York City.
Yeah, she sang the second performance in Lucia. And sang there throughout the rest of her career through 1909, when she retired, sang opposite Caruso in 1903, when he made his American debut in Rigoletto.
Now, to become a star, obviously, you have to have talent. But also, there are 2 kinds of talented people. Ones that are very talented in an area, and they really don't have to work that hard because it's natural. Then others that have the talent, but they really, really have to work hard to bring it out. And after you either had your talent exposed those ways, you have to have something else happen which brings your awareness to the next level. And how did that happen? What kind of a talent was she, and how did she become so big?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And you can only wonder, if she didn't have people recognize the talent and able to take her to the next level, she might have grown up to be the greatest gypsy violinist in Galicia. She was...
That's a funny line.
Well, no, it's true.
You're right.
She was studying at 4 and at 6, and it's a little sad when you read some of the early recollections about how she'd be playing with a doll when she should be practicing, and she threw the doll aside when her father would come in, because she was very disciplined, and she proved herself, like I said, early. And there was a fellow in the village named Granddaddy Yanovich who saw the talent and realized she couldn't afford the Lvov Conservatory on her own, so he funded her. And it was there that she met William Stengel, who was to be her husband, and not that many years later, 1879, he was 12 years older than she when they married. And so he was an agent, mentor, guide to her throughout. So it seems every step along her career she had that important person or people who recognized her talent and enabled her to further it.
You made a very interesting point that when no one was around, she was playing with her doll.
Right.
And I think that's a very important point, that a child must have the opportunity to be a child, even though they're talented. I know of someone who is a brilliant tennis player, but Daddy never gave her time to play with dolls, and at a certain point when she hit 18 or 19, she threw the rackets away and she refuses to play tennis anymore. And it's just that it became something of a negative in her life because she never had a chance to grow up and be a little kid.
Yeah. But I think growing up as she did in poverty in eastern Poland, Sembrich had a combination of all those things. Great love of nature, and they would travel early in life from village to village to play at village functions. And I think she was very disciplined, but obviously she carried from her childhood these things, a great love of nature. Even later in her career, when she had respiratory problems, she would actually go to the Alps and climb and hike. And when she was up in Bolton Landing on Lake George, she would garden. And we have her...
The air is so clear.
Yeah. We have her little... Wild Birds of North America, her little book, and her gardening tools, and we have lovely pictures of her with the puppies or in the garden. So I think it was as much a prima donna as she was in her career, and as respected and authority she was.
What's your definition of a prima donna?
Well, that's what I say. Often the word diva is used for, and of course it means the first woman, the star singer, and I hear Sembrich referred to sometimes as a diva, and at least from my context now I think of a diva as maybe something of a negative, but prima donna has such a nice, it just sounds nicer. It's the same as a diva, I guess you'd say, but I like the way it sounds. And prima donna, in terms of defining it, is probably someone who commands respect. Most likely they deserve it, and they're most likely perfectionists, and as a result things need to be a certain way.
Well, to me, my interpretation of the word or the phrase prima donna would be someone that you said deserves the respect and everything, but they're arrogant.
Yeah, okay.
And there are some people that deserve the respect, but just go around and you automatically just give them the respect, and others that
deserve it.
They're arrogant and demand it. And I don't know how, that's why I asked you.
Yeah, I never got the sense. And not always
not a nice person.
Yeah, I never got the sense of that. I get the sense that Marcella Sembrich was very particular. She was like I say, a perfectionist, and but I can't picture. She was also very charitable toward everyone.
You can be a perfectionist and be a nice person, and there's nothing. If you want something to be right, you got to have it. Like I used to love to watch James Brown. Obviously, not an opera singer, but boy, I went to every concert he ever did here, and you would just see, the timing and the perfection, and he expected it.
Sure. Well, it's interesting too. Like when you look at all the personalities in the opera world, and this singer and the scandalous affair here or there, to sing with Sembrich was somehow to get to coin a phrase, the good housekeeping seal of approval, because she was kind of very, and she even said this in one of her recollections, that she's had a very uninteresting life in those regards. She was married to the same man for many years until he passed away in 1917, and she just saw her life as not that glamorous. Of course, for all of us looking at who she was, all the people she knew, and everything that she did, it is pretty extraordinary life.